Esther Wachiku, and these are the top stories. Court remands 3 Lagos Assembly workers for assaulting DSS operatives. Vatsa's family slams Babangida over Vatsa's execution excuse. Rivers APC denies defection of 27 lawmakers, accuses Governor Fuba of lawlessness. Peter Obi supporters Obedient Movement unveil new logo. Presidency fires direct shots at El-Rufai as ex-Kaduna governor rains fury on President Tinubu. Details now. Thank you for staying with us. A federal high court sitting in Lagos has ordered the remand of 3 workers from the Lagos State House of Assembly in the custody of the Department of State Security Services over an alleged assault on its officers. Now, the Justice Daniel Oseago issued the directive for the detention of Ibrahim Olarenwaju, Adetu Adekunle, and Fatimo Adetola after the DSS counsel, Mr. Michael Bajela, sought their arraignment. However, the judge decided to review the case before proceeding further. Now, the court ruled that the DSS would hold the defendants in custody until their arraignment being scheduled for tomorrow. According to the charge sheet dated February 24, 2025 and filed today, being Tuesday, the DSS accused 3 individuals along with others still at large of conspiring to assault State Security Service officers while they were performing their official duties. The agency alleged that on February 17, 2025, at the Lagos State House of Assembly, the defendants obstructed DSS officers from carrying out their duties without any lawful justification. They were also charged for cyber stalking, with the prosecution alleging that they recorded and disseminated false information on social media, spreading it nationwide with the intent of inciting public disorder. The DSS further claimed that Ibrahim Olarenwaju, Adetu Adekunle, and Fatimo Adetola conspired to commit a felony by deliberately misdirecting electronic messages on social media to embarrass the agency and its officials. Additionally, the prosecution accused Ibrahim Olarenwaju and Adetu Adekunle of using an iPhone 12 Pro Max to record and share misleading content online, allegedly intending to discredit the DSS and provoke public unrest. The charge also stated that Adetu Adekunle, on or about February 17, 2025, at the Lagos State House of Assembly, used a Techno Pop 8 to record and circulate false information on social media with the alleged intent to undermine the DSS and disrupt public order. Now, in a very recent development, the family of late General Babangida Vatsa had described the recently released autobiography of General Ibrahim Babangida as a collection of distorted facts and a reference book for criminals. Now, Vatsa was executed, as you will recall, in 1986 for allegedly plotting a coup against Babangida. Speaking to newsmen in Mina, the family spokesperson and a cousin of the late General Jonathan Vatsa condemned Babangida's claim that Vatsa's killing was justified due to evidence implicating him in a coup. According to him, he said, and I quote, "General Babangida is a man that has lost in the affairs of honor over the many lies contained in his belated autobiography book. Babangida's book is a bunch of lies and blackmails. It's a collection of distorted facts that cannot be a reference book for young and upcoming generations, but rather for criminals," end quote. He questioned Babangida's identity, citing his admission of changing his name from Badamasi to Babangida to associate with the northern region. "Northerners don't bear the name Badamasi. It's synonymous with the Southwest people," end quote. The former Niger State APC Publicity Secretary accused Babangida of lying about the June 12 election annulment, stating that it was Babangida's decision, not General Sani Abacha's decision, to annul that election. He further lamented that even in death, Babangida has refused to allow late General Vatsa and his family have peace, end quote. Now, in Rivers State, the APC, that is the All Progressives Congress State, the Rivers State chapter, has dismissed claims that the 27 embattled lawmakers of the Rivers State House of Assembly defected from the People's Democratic Party to the APC. Speaking at a press briefing in Port Harcourt today, the APC State Chairman Tony Okocha insisted that the lawmakers never officially joined the party despite widespread speculations. Okocha clarified that the December 2023 event at the Port Harcourt Polo Club, which many believed was a reception for the defecting lawmakers, was actually a celebration of the inauguration of the State Executive Council of the APC. Regarding defection claims, Okocha stated categorically that he did not receive Right Honorable Martin Amaewhule and his colleagues into the APC, adding that the lawmakers only attended the Polo Club event as friends. According to him, there was no intention to organize a reception for what we were not holding. We were inaugurated in Abuja and we chose to organize a reception and Thanksgiving for our members. It was not to receive the 27 lawmakers. We were misinterpreted to have received the 27 lawmakers into APC. That is not correct. We invited individual members of the assembly. I have a relationship with them over time. We tried to woo them into the party. I was intentional in reaching out to them to join us. We would have counted it all joy if we had succeeded. Okocha also accused the Rivers State Governor Similai Fubara of continuously violating the rule of law, alleging that he had refused to obey court rulings. He cited the Federal High Court judgment delivered by Justice James Omotosho, which granted 15 reliefs in favor of Amaewhule and his group, but which the governor had allegedly ignored. Now, supporters of the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, under the umbrella of the Obedient Movement, unveiled a new logo today. Now, the movement's national coordinator, Tanko Yunusa, unveiled the logo on his X handle. He said the new logo symbolized the very essence of supporters of Peter Obi and the values they stand for. Giving details on the items that make up the new logo, Yunusa stated, and I quote, "At the heart of this emblem is the image of Mr. Peter Obi, a leader whose life of integrity, humility and tireless service has inspired a movement rooted in accountability, competence and compassion. His face on this logo is more than a reflection of an individual. It represents a collective hope of millions who believe that governance should serve the people, not the privileged few." End quote. The Obedient Movement coordinator said the new logo was a declaration of members' commitment to justice, equity and pursuit of a better Nigeria where merit prevails over mediocrity. The presidency has urged the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, to move on following his exclusion from President Bola Tinubu's administration. El-Rufai on Monday said that the National Assembly did not reject him as a ministerial nominee. El-Rufai, while speaking via Monitor television program, said President Tinubu simply changed his mind on the nomination. The former governor, who debunked the claims that the National Assembly rejected him because of a security report from the Department of State Services, also disclosed that that was not true. According to him, "I am a self-made man. I don't need anything." Through 2 months of negotiations, we finally agreed that he would nominate me as minister, and there were certain conditions attached to that. Along the line, either the president changed his mind. Please don't believe the story that the National Assembly rejected me. They had nothing to do with it. The president did not want me in his cabinet. In response, a special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Nanuga, via Monitor television program today, said El-Rufai feels hurt about not being appointed a minister despite his contribution to Tinubu's electioneering process. Onanuga said El-Rufai is displaying resentment of someone being left out of a moving train, which is why he is campaigning against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You're currently listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll take a very short break. When we return, more news and we head into a news analysis segment. Do kindly stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. You're still listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. In more news report, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has filed a defamation lawsuit against the President of the Senate, Senator Akpabio, following a dispute over the reassignment of her Senate seat. Reports indicate that Akpoti-Uduaghan objected to the relocation of her seat after a reshuffle caused by opposition lawmakers defecting to the majority wing, which led to a confrontation between her and the Senate president. Also, on February 25, 2025, she filed a suit at the Federal Capital Territory High Court, naming the President of the Senate, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the senior legislative aide of the Senate President, Infon Patrick, as the second and third defendants. The case alleges that defamatory statements were made by the Senate President and later published by his aide on Facebook. Mr. Dele Fanimo, good evening and thank you for joining us on the World News at 6 today.
Always my pleasure. Good evening.
Mr. Dele Fanimo is a political, national and social affairs commentator. Obviously, Mr. Dele Fanimo will help him to give us his insight into some of the questions that we posed at him this evening. Mr. Dele Fanimo, let me start off with this recent disclosure of Natasha Akpoti suing the Senate President Akpabio for defamatory remarks through his aide via Facebook, and she's suing him for 1.3 billion naira. Do you think this is necessary, or you think she's being overly dramatic?
She's not really dramatic.
You think she's been dramatic?
No.
Okay.
You see, there have been issues around Akpabio, the Senate President, in the past. And it's like the trauma of his ordeal in the hands of Saraki when it was in opposing side, when Saraki was Senate President, is what he's trying to reenact in another form, because he has the opportunity of being the Senate President.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there should be a harmonious relationship within the National Assembly members. First, you should realize that by consensus, you are just first among equals.
Okay.
Every member, 109 members of the National Assembly, were elected into the National Assembly on their own merit.
Okay.
It is as a result of administrative convenience that they came together to appoint some people into key positions for cohesion and administrative fluidity. So that's why you became the Senate President in the first instance. We have seen in this country where a president used 5 Senate presidents during his lifetime, the lifetime of that administration. That's referring to Obasanjo. Right. So that is to the extent that you now realize that it's a privilege to be the Senate President and not a right. Natasha could as well become Senate President.
Okay.
King Gibe could have become Senate President or any other member on that floor of the chamber. Now, if by virtue of standing rule, if there's going to be a change in the sitting arrangement in the National Assembly as a result of some people defecting to the dominant party and all that, because of course there will always be a change in sitting arrangement when things like that happen. Because they want to have the dominant party on one side, and then maybe have, so that when you are throwing up certain things on the floor of the assembly, you know where such response is coming from and all that. So, but I don't expect that it will degenerate to the point that there was an altercation on the floor of the assembly.
Okay.
You see,
I think her issue or her grouse is how she was easily dismissed, and there was no respect to even hear her voice from Senate President Akpabio. Now, other senators have actually been able to accept television interviews, and they were all in support of Senate President Akpabio as to the fact that they felt Natasha Akpoti was just being overly dramatic. In fact, one of them even said that why is she talking like that she usually wears see-through. So the question is, has it gotten to the point where you need to physically, be derogatory about her dressing? Why go to that level with her if at all you're not comfortable with how she expressed herself in the house? And so would you say because of that derogatory comment, she has every right to be astute in, suing him to court?
You see, rights are qualified.
Okay.
They are not absolute. Your right stops at the point at which you infringe on the rights of the next person to you. To the extent that there's a rule in the National Assembly and even the State Assembly, even at the local level, that if you are not recognized by the person presiding over a session, you are not supposed to talk.
All right.
And in this instance, from what we watched on television, it appeared then that the Senate president didn't recognize Natasha.
So she wasn't supposed to speak.
She wasn't supposed to speak. And so there are rules that you can come under. You just raise a point of observation, point of, you invoke order. On so I stand, and as a result, I want to make some comments. Maybe because some of these people are just coming to the Senate for the first time. Maybe they didn't understand the ground rules of the Senate. So to that extent, the fact that the Senate president expressly declared that you are not recognized, it's enough for her to keep her peace.
Okay.
And then find another means of expressing herself.
All right, let's go into this particular revelation that 5 PDP governors are reportedly aligning with Nasiru El-Rufai and Peter Obi for the 2027 presidential election. Now, I'm sure a couple of us have actually watched the interview that, was organized, or rather that was accepted by former governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, and a foundational member of the All Progressives Congress, where he was able to express some of his misgivings, divulge what he thinks is the truth in terms of differentiating or sieving the truth from the speculation, according to him, that we've been listening to on media or through some social media platforms. He also mentioned the fact that indeed he is not surprised as to what transpired, saying that the president was the one who did not give him the ministerial appointment, that the Senate talk is just a cover-up. And a lot of persons are wondering because Nasiru El-Rufai categorically said that he's not about the personality. President Tinubu is not his friend. He's all about the fact that this is what the party decided and that was what he tried to achieve. The president begged him to be part of his cabinet. The president had begged him to actually work along with him. And so he's surprised that the president changed his mind, but he doesn't care. Now, after that particular declaration, a lot of talks have eventually evolved from there. Now, they are saying from sources that El-Rufai and Atiku have held multiple meetings. Sources are suggesting their plan is to dismantle the PDP's electoral strength to prevent a repeat of the 2023 split that favored the APC, the split with Nyesom Wike and the G5 governors, obviously, and that allegedly Governor Sim Fubara is spearheading that move to fragment the People's Democratic Party, joined by Bayelsa's Governor Duoye Diri and 3 other top PDP governors. Now they are actually floating El-Rufai and Peter Obi as a ticket. The political party has not yet been named, or we don't know if it's still going to be part of the PDP or another political party, but they are urging Atiku Abubakar to drop his ambition to run in 2027 for this ticket to fly. Do you think that Peter Obi, for any reason, would actually decide to float a ticket with El-Rufai? Who would be the presidential flag bearer and who would be the vice presidential flag bearer, since El-Rufai said he doesn't mind anybody from the south actually being the president or being floated as a strong contender towards the APC in 2027?
You see, sometimes when I want to discuss issues like this, I always want to trace it back in history.
All right.
El-Rufai, for all I care, has always been an opportunist.
Okay.
And he is ready to do anything to sustain himself in power.
Okay.
El-Rufai, up until 1999, 2000, was not in the political radar of this country.
Okay.
It was somewhere outside the country. It was Atiku that brought El-Rufai back to Nigeria, and he nominated him as the DG of BPE.
Okay.
And when it was time, after consolidating himself, and Obasanjo was also looking at him as somebody that could be used to further his interest, it threw Atiku under the bus. And he was one of those people that were so vociferous about denigrating Atiku. You need to read his an accidental civil servant, his book. You will see some of these things play out, although biographers are always very smart in making themselves angel, even when they are devils. So, from that on, it is one scandal or the other that is traced to El-Rufai. Now, bring it back to the current events. If El-Rufai had scaled the Senate hurdle, I'm sure he wouldn't have come up to say all this as he's saying. And you see, sometimes that certain things happen that will make you feel that, look, it is a game of chance in politics. Once you go off the radar, you need to take your time to find your compass.
Regardless of the personality, a lot of
personality of who?
Of El-Rufai. A lot of persons do not trust him, possibly because of their experience when he was the governor of Kaduna State, the experience when he was the FCT minister. A couple of people feel that the security in Kaduna State
That's why I said he's
the
an
northern part of
opportunist.
Kaduna. It's
a power monger.
The southern Kaduna insecurity, the killings at the time, is one of the stain on his administration. And a couple of people felt he was a religious bigot. So they really do not trust anything that comes from his mouth. But a couple of persons said some of the things, the concerns he raised were major pointers. And he said something in that interview. He said, if a lot of people think he doesn't have the crowd to pull, if a lot of people think he doesn't have the political influence, they should all wait until 2027. Then they will now know who has that political influence. But the issue here is this. These 5 governors from the opposition People's Democratic Party who are reportedly or allegedly working behind the scenes to support a potential Nasir El-Rufai Peter Obi combination. The big question is, Peter Obi has been silent ever since all this while. Nobody has heard anything as to what his political party alignment means. He's been minding his business. Exactly. Do you think with what he represents, with the kind of politics that Peter Obi is driving at or trying to create, the kind of slit he's trying to bring in politics, his style of politics, that he would be part of an El-Rufai Peter Obi ticket?
Let me tell you this. Politicians have a peculiar way of doing things. And so, as a result of this, there's nothing beyond a politician.
In other words?
In other words, Obi could fly with El-Rufai, yes.
You think so?
He could. And the only thing that can stop that arrangement is probably if Atiku is bent on running. Because there's no ticket for anybody in APC. And Labour Party is going under. You said the only way that can fly is if that cannot fly. Is if Atiku decides to run. Yeah, they are urging that he should not run. Atiku is not to be trusted. He has done it several times. That they would give that posturing that he will not run. And eventually, at last minute, he will just bring out his war chest and then overrun every other person that is contesting for that particular election, and he gets the tickets. What if the PDP says, Atiku, you will not be allowed to Who is PDP? Who is PDP? Yes. PDP is to the extent of those who use their personal resources to run the party. That's why it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, for them to deal with Wike. Because in the process of energizing PDP, Wike was smart enough as a politician to have put his people in strategic positions, including Damagun. Yes. And so that's why they will keep saying we will deal with Wike. They don't have the muzzle to deal with him. And so the same thing with Atiku. Atiku, who is that person in PDP today? Obi does not have the kind of resources that Atiku can deploy during election. So that alignment is needed. El-Rufai does not have that kind of war chest to tackle Atiku. Okay. So if El-Rufai comes out to say, this is my position, and Peter Obi says, I'm aligning with you. The combination of the two, they don't have the war chests of Atiku. And PDP still feel that that party is a northern party.
Okay.
Regardless of whoever is posturing as member of PDP in the South. And don't forget that they are still smarting from what Peter Obi did to them.
Okay.
In the last election. You recall that up until that last election, PDP vote was usually given during the election in the Southeast and South. And they lost woefully in the 5 Southeastern states. So how would you reconcile all this?
All that.
And
all right. So, but again, aside from this particular development, that there's a possibility that there's a floating towards, El-Rufai and Peter Obi, although El-Rufai did not mention anything concerning his connection with Peter Obi or not during the interview. So the speculation with the party that he may defect to is possibly the SDP, or another political party, but he's categorically said not the PDP. So let's look at this. The supporters of Peter Obi, that's the Obedient Movement, they've unveiled a new logo, and at the heart of the logo is Peter Obi. What they, according to Tanko Yunusa, he said that the new logo symbolizes the very essence of the supporters of Peter Obi and the values they stand for. And according to him, he said at the heart of the emblem is the image of Mr. Peter Obi, a leader whose life of integrity, humility, and tireless service has inspired a movement. Now, there's been a lot of discouragement on the movement. They want to cripple the movement from resurfacing as strong as they did in 2027. Every tactic you can think of has been employed by the opposition, specifically this current administration, to cripple the potency of the movement ahead of 2027. Some have called it an ethnic movement. Some have called it a movement that is not decentralized. Some have called it several terms. And it feels like maybe they are losing supporters or the movement is losing momentum. Now that a new emblem has come out, are we going to see a new political party called the Obedient Political Party, which obviously the presidential candidate will be Peter Obi? Do you think also that INEC can allow a new political party, or what exactly do you think this represents?
You see, there are over 12 political parties that are in limbo.
Okay.
And they are waiting for cherry picking. So any political party, any movement, any individual can pick on those parties, including SDP, Labour Party, or whatever you call, and AAC, whatever the name is. So to that extent, anybody has any right, the right to pick any of these political parties and use as a platform for further engagement, political engagement. So to that extent, Peter Obi is qualified.
He's qualified.
He's qualified
to pick up any of these dormant political parties.
Yes.
All right. But that means it cannot be changed to Obedient Movement per se, but it doesn't mean
Obedient Party has not been, Movement Party has not been registered.
Yes.
So they have to apply to INEC. To register
the party
before they can float that political party. As it is today, it's just a movement and not a political party. And so the best they could do is to align with a political party and use it as a platform. The same way they align with Labour Party and use it as a platform in the last election. So, but you see, the point is, Peter Obi would always be the beautiful bride in any election, at least for now. I don't know what will happen in the future. But as for now, and everybody seems to romance with him.
Are you sure?
Because of
a couple of people feel
capital.
He's leaving, his loyalists are leaving. For example, Valentine, who has defected to the APC, someone who was a supposed strong supporter, loyal member of the Labour Party or of Peter Obi, has now crossed capital to the APC. So when you see that kind of situation evolving, how do you think it portrays the strength of the supporters or those who are possibly part of the Labour Party as a political party that is meant to have kept Peter Obi afloat?
You see, I've always said it. There is no political party in Nigeria.
Well, why would you say there's no political party?
We only have platforms.
Okay.
So transition is always seamless.
Okay.
It's just the transition in political parties in Nigeria is just like the seamless transition of an Agbero to a driver today, and tomorrow come back to Agbero. The moment you lose your vehicle, maybe the owner of the vehicle withdraws it from you. You are not going to leave the park. You come back as Agbero the next day and be calling for passengers. And if before night falls, another man brings out his car and says, I'm giving it to you to run, you also seamlessly cross over to driver. So there's no, it's the same thing with our political parties. There is no gatekeeping.
Okay.
There is no restraint from moving from one political party. It just shows the fluidity. It just shows the opportunistic nature of those who clamor for change in Nigeria. They equate their personal grouse with the grouse of the people to be able to connect with the people. But as soon as they get that power, they abandon those people they used to get to that point. And that is always what has been happening. When Wike started his crusade against the PDP, I told some of my friends, I said, this man is making you look as if he's fighting for Nigerians. But he's also fighting for himself.
Oh. All right, Mr. Dele Fanimo, the family of late General Babangida Vatsa, they have described the recently released autobiography of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida as a collection of distorted facts and reference book for criminals. They also asked him, who is he? That is, they questioned his identity. How do you change your name from Badamasi to Babangida because they don't understand that? And they said Badamasi is a southwestern name. That means he's not a proper Fulani Hausa man per se. So in other words, his credibility has always been in question since what you call the inception of what his real name is. They also went ahead to say that he lied against his most loyal friend by saying his loyal friend planned against him, and that whatever it was he spilled in that particular book is untrue about them. This was by the cousin, a distant cousin of late Maman Vatsa. This is by Jonathan Vatsa, who condemned Babangida's claim that Vatsa's killing was justified due to evidence implicating him in a coup. Do you think that all the allegations, the pointers, from Vatsa's family towards Babangida is called for? They're also asking Babangida to please leave Maman Vatsa alone, that even in death, he cannot even allow him to rest.
You see, it's a whole lot of issues.
A whole lot of issues on what part? On the part of Vatsa?
On the part of IBB and Vatsa.
Okay.
You see, yes, to the extent that the public perception of IBB is not too good for him to be able to push through his narrative on that coup.
Are you sure the public perception is that so? Or they're actually happy that he came out now instead of coming out, the truth coming out after he's dead and there is nobody to defend if indeed he actually disclosed that?
You see, what we are trying to do is to separate certain things. You see, in the military, the fact that you hear of a coup and you don't call the attention of the authorities, you are already guilty of that coup. And for Maman's Vatsa to have, according to what I read, to have confronted IBB that you heard that I was planning a coup against you and you didn't confront me. It shows there is something going on. You understand? And you see, Rawlings was kept in detention even when he was guilty of treason. And he was able to come back and take over.
You're speaking government. Of Ghanaians for the former
Yes, John Jerry Rawlings. So, a lot of things can happen that we may not get to the root of that matter.
Do you think that book is actually expressing the truth? Or the book is, in a way, being subliminal?
See, let me tell you. There are certain distortions in that book.
Okay.
Because some of us were living witnesses to the build-up to June 12th and the June 12th itself. So I was not a baby. I was in my 20s.
During the June 12th election.
During the June 12th election. So I was a participant. And even after that, some of those protests, I was involved. So I would rather IBB had kept his peace rather than coming out in the lifetime of people like me that are still alive to begin to distort history.
A couple of people feel that it's good that he came out now to clear out the term supposed Igbo coup. That it's good he came out now because that has always been the tag since the coup happened. A couple of Nigerians are saying that it's good he came out now to officially say that indeed Abiola won the election and of course make clarifications on the supposedly tagged Igbo coup, which obviously has clarified that it is not. It was basically had no coloration.
You see, IBB was just trying to punish his image.
Polish his image?
In that book.
Do you think this book has polished his image or brought a lot of questions?
He was trying to.
Okay.
He was trying to. I'm sure he never expected this kind of backlash when they were putting those things together for him. IBB, for all you care, could stand and tell us in Nigeria that he was afraid of Abacha. Even when you mention in that book that the man was not intelligent. How can an intelligent person be afraid of an unintelligent person? That's one. Two, all the successful coup in Nigeria, which one that does not have the imprimatur of Babangida? The only thing they use Abacha for is for his bravery. If he sees death, he can confront death. But the planning of any coup does not require an Abacha. He only knows that if he's going to face armor tank, he's ready to face armor tank. That's why he was retained. Because somebody went to Russia for a course, and his certificate when he came back was, this officer is untrainable. So, somebody like that, you retain me. And up to today, they still do in the military that if you are a very brave, courageous soldier and you are a non-commissioned officer, they can give you the field rank of a captain. Just to make sure that they encourage you to be able to face and kiss the bullets. You know? So, let me tell you, this narrative of Badamosi or anything is neither here nor there. But I've seen somebody from the southeastern extraction who, because he wanted to make a career in the military, went to claim a northern state. It was at the point of being nominated a military administrator that they got to know. He was using the word, the name Bako. I've forgotten the first name.
Meanwhile, he was not of that.
Meanwhile, it was Igbo.
Okay. So, in other words, you're
validating
the fact that Babangida decided to adopt.
He could have done that. He could have done that.
So, a possibility that Babangida is actually a Yoruba man.
It could be.
Man. So who is this Igbo person that went to adopt a Hausa Fulani name so he can be allowed to be part of the...
In fact, the guy was even roped in a coup.
What is his name?
I say he was using Bako.
He was using Bako, but he was an Igbo person. You can't remember,
I can't remember
his real name.
The Igbo name. So a lot of things... we have seen in this country where a certificate that belongs to just one person among the siblings is being used by 4 other siblings.
All right, that's true. Let's quickly head on to Rivers State, where Tony Okocha has come out to say categorically that they did not receive Right Honorable Martin Amawole and his colleagues into the APC, that the lawmakers only attended the Polo Club event as friends. They do not know how it was misinterpreted, that they welcomed the defected lawmakers from PDP to APC. So if Tony Okocha is telling us that it was just to organize a reception of Thanksgiving for their members and not to welcome those that they defected, where did these 27 lawmakers, where do they belong to now? They are not lawmakers within the PDP, obviously. They said they were defecting to the APC. The APC is telling us that they did not in any way receive these individuals. They are not members, that people got it twisted at all. So where do these men stand? If Tony Okocha is coming out to say this, that they don't know who those men were, they did not accept or recognize them, are they floating? And if they're floating, what then happens?
You see, let me tell you. If you require a corpse to prosecute a murder case, even when you know that that person has actually committed murder, but you have to do autopsy.
Okay.
You have to show the dead body. before you can establish a case of murder.
Question is, why is Okocha coming out to make this clarification now?
You know why I'm saying this is that this thing has been on, not now.
Yeah, true.
There is nowhere these people signed. There was no letter written to the assembly
that they are
defecting. So, nobody has been able to produce any letter.
So
and nobody has been able to say that they stood, at least even one member stood on the floor of the house to say,
it was verbal. It was something they said verbally.
It was the speaker that read that some people are saying, and there is no fact.
So there's a possibility that those guys may come back to be representatives of the constituencies that voted in.
That is it.
Interesting. Is that what is delaying the court's judgment?
Yes, that is it.
That is what is delaying the court's judgment.
It's not what is delaying it.
Why is the court delaying it?
But of course they have to. They have to put their house together.
Which house together?
You see,
house?
We are at the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And at the Supreme Court, cases don't just happen overnight.
Okay.
You have to constitute either 3 or 5 or 7 member of the bench to advocate over a case like that.
So with what you just explained now, since there is no paper, there is nothing to validate written somewhere as legal that they have defected.
So if they now say they never defected, if they say they never defected,
change their mouth now.
Yes, you cannot hold.
So
you can't hold them
would have to
it.
accept them back to their seats. They have to go back to their seats.
Of course.
Interesting, Mr. Dele-Fanimo. Thank you so much. All right, sorry that was cutting you off because we've actually run out of time, but I sincerely do appreciate you taking your time to give us your insight into some of these issues on the World News at 6. There's quite a lot actually to discuss in this context, in the context of the conversation, to have better clarification on, but we do know that Nigeria's political terrain is very unique, and obviously there'll be something there's something that will always come up, so we should not be surprised at some of these things. But Mr. Dele-Fanimo, thank you so much for being part of the World News at 6. All right, to wrap up the World News at 6, here again are the top stories ahead. That the court has remanded 3 Lagos Assembly workers for assaulting DSS operatives. Vatsa's family slams Babangida over Vatsa's execution excuse. Rivers APC denies defection of 27 lawmakers, accuses Governor Fubar of lawlessness. Peter Obi supported Obedient Movement unveils new logo, and Presidency fires direct shots at El-Rufai's ex-Kaduna governor rains fury on President Tinubu. That's a wrap on the World News at 6. My name is Esther Wachuku. Good evening and thank you for listening.